Hey, good evening YouTubers, welcome to Shrigleytube TV episode 26. Thanks for returning. If you're a returning viewer, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I've got all sorts going on tonight, just been a bad week for production, not going to go on about it, but Monday obviously was off, Tuesday I had the kids, Wednesday never got started, Thursday felt rotten, cold, something come to get me. Anyway, I'm over that now, so we've got a bit done. I've done some videoing of what I've been up to. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I have got a treat behind me here. Last week obviously we did the Ian Carter and we talked about some of the engineers that were around back in the day and how amazing they all were. Well, I had a knock at the door, bloke come round to see me about some Lotus parts. His name was Peter, and he said, yeah, in the 70s or 80s I was a young lad and I decided to go racing my my Norton racing motorcycle. And I put a Hillman imp engine in it and it was really quick, but they banned it straight away because it had 4 cylinders. So I said, well, if I come back with a 2-cylinder version, will you let me race that? And they said, yeah, 2 cylinders is fine. So he said, I did a 2-cylinder version then. And I was thinking, all right, okay, yeah, great, well done. And then he said, I brought it along for you to see anyway. It's in the boot of the car. It needs the crank grinding because it had a little whoopsie. Would you like to have a look at it? I was like, wow, definitely. So behind me here, now this is what we used to be capable of when, 30, 40 years ago. I doubt this will ever happen again, but have a look at this and see what you think. It's a lovely bit of kit. Okay, YouTubers, good morning. It's Wednesday morning. I back in the workshop. Not fully up to speed yet. I've just been tinkering. I've had a tidy up, which is unlike me, but I've got an important customer coming tomorrow, a good friend of mine, so you'll meet him tomorrow no doubt when I interview him, hopefully, if he agrees to it with his engine. Now this is the piston from the 1120, the motorbike piston and rod, and if you remember from the last video I made some little marks where we wanted the center point of the cutter to sit. So I hate doing this. It's not my cup of tea. I don't believe in modifying pistons, just get the piston made to suit, but because it's a no money job, it's just a bit of fun for Andy. I'm just going to plough in with the cutter. Now this is my cutter I use for doing my valves. It's 1.4, so it does the inlet and exhaust the same size as the inlet, but we lose a bit of compression, but it just saves messing about. And I've modified it to fit in a chuck, which isn't the best thing, but it works. It serves a purpose. It's not highly loaded up, it's just taking a bit of soft alley out of the top of the piston. And what I've done, or I did a while ago, which you might appreciate or might not, is if you look at the edge of the tip on the cutter, you'll see I've put a chamfer on it. And the reason I've done that is I don't want to have a sharp corner in the bottom of the valve cutout. I want a nice radius so that we don't cause a stress raiser. Now this little contraption here is for doing the valve seat, obviously for holding the piston. And as you can see, although it's quite tight, it's on a swivel, so you can see it moving backwards and forwards. Now what I need to do is turn this back on again because it's gone off, but I know from measuring the head that the angle of my valves in my head, where they come out, the head that's going on, due to the head being skimmed a little bit on a wedge to try and make the chamber the right shape, it's 19.2 degrees. So I just got to basically keep tapping this until I get it to 19.2 degrees, which is proving hard. With one hand I'll have to get a hammer. Anyway, that's that. And then I have the piston clamped on with these 2 little clamps here and these 2 Rover V8 cam followers, which acts as supports just to balance out the clamping. I've got a feeling these are like no doubt someone will recognise them, like a valve rocker or something. I just don't know what. They're quite nice. And all I've done here is, obviously normally we use this one. This is for an imp. This is actually ex Ian Carter, and if you look, he's even stamped into it to say what it's for. So it's a 70mm sunbeam. So that was the indexing tool. So you see the diameter turned on it. That would sit in the back of the piston to help locate it. All I've done here is I've just took a piece of alley and I've machined it down so that it fits on this index here. As you see, we've got a nice flat there and there. So when I put the piston on, it's got a good location, because I know it's not massive load, but I want them to be in exactly the same place, so when I do each one they all end up correct, and don't move. So when that's pinched down with these gently holding it, that'll keep it all nice and secure so we can machine it. Right, so what I'll do is I'll set the angle, and then we'll plow through one together. Right, okay, it's the exciting part. I've just touched on, I know that I'm in the right place. If you zoom in there, you can just see my little scribe line just behind, so I can see them in the right area. Obviously, as I've just touched on the inside part of the cutter, then we've got the chamfer, then we've got the outside part, so it will hopefully all work out correctly. Now what I've done is I've measured this piston, which is another one. I've measured from the back of the crown to the top. I've got roughly 300 thou thickness, so I want to go a maximum of 200 thou deep with the valve cutout in the piston, because after 100 thou thickness we're getting a bit thin, and I don't want to risk going any thinner than that. So if we still haven't got enough clearance in the engine when we come to build it, what we might have to do is recut the valve seats, so the valve seats higher in the chamber, so that we've got that distance between the piston and the valve at top dead center, because we don't want anything making contact, because that will cause a failure. So I'm just going to start the machine up now, and I'll probably put this on time lapse while we cruise in and see how it gets on. Okay, I've just slow-mode that for you, or time-lapse it should I say, so you could see what was happening. When I've got the machine fully set up, we'll do one together. I've finished doing the cutouts now, and I will be honest, I fell shy of the full depth. I've gone in about 180 thou, and I've done that because I just wanted to put the piston in, put some engineering blue on the valves, and decide if I'm in the right sort of ballpark, or if I've got it a mile out, because I can always come back and take more material out, but you do struggle to put material back on. So I'm going to take this now and put it in the engine, and it's dead easy to bolt back on here and replicate where we are. I've got my depth set, so we'll get a figure now and see how much clearance we've actually got at TDC. Right, okay, I've got the one piston in now that I've machined for valve cutouts, and I haven't gone to full depth on the piston, because what I thought I'd do was I'd go in about 1 milli shy of full depth, and then I'll get a witness mark by putting some engineer's blue on the valves, and then I can see exactly where the valve is landing. So if I need to adjust the settings, I can adjust the settings on the miller before I go full depth. So I can feel that something's catching on the last part of the movement on the exhaust valve, so that's potentially it's catching on the diameter rather than the depth. The inlet feels pretty good. Now I haven't set the tripod up, but basically I've measured this using the vernier, and I've got about 160 thou of clearance at top dead center, which is nowhere near enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart again now. We'll have a look and see where it's marked the piston, and then we'll put them back in the miller. Okay, I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong here, but as you can see, I must have got something wrong, because we're right over on the edge there, so we need to move that cutout about 1 millimeter or 2 that way, and this cutout doesn't need to be as far over to the back, so we can bring it forward a bit, which is good, because that's where it gets thin. It's thicker at the middle there, where the gudgeon pin has like a support pieces in there that can help the strength. So yeah, that's good, that, and we're not a million miles off, but we can get it better. Right, we're back on the miller. I've just moved the whole jig over 1.5 millimeters, and I've set a new 0 on here so that I won't come as far across now, and I've put another 50 thou depth on it. So all we do literally is wind this down. See, it's on a stop there, that hits the stop, then use this little handle here to lock the head in place. We press the start button, and I'm just going to use this handle, just zoom out a bit, to wind it back. You'll see it cutting there. Then we'll stop on the 0 and we'll see how he looks. Right, that's my first piston completed now. So I've gone the extra depth, and I've also done the exhaust. What I did was I did all the inlets on the other pistons, and then I did the exhaust second, because that way I could leave the whole lot locked up and I only had one number to remember. So we'll go and put this in the engine now and hope that we've got the clearance required. Right, the good news is, and there's bad news by the way, we've got 220 thou clearance on the inlet valve before it hits the piston, which is possibly enough. We'll have to have a look at that closer when we put the cam in and do a lap with some plasticine. But the exhaust, definitely shallow. I must have done something wrong, not quite sure what. I'll pull the head off and have a quick look. Right, not quite sure what I did wrong here, but the inlet is looking great now. I'm really happy with that. That's clearing everywhere. But the exhaust, I've been catching the edge there, so yeah, must have made the mark correctly. I've done something wrong. Anyway, I'm not going to go on because you'll all be falling asleep on these piston cutouts. Next time you see him, we'll have the engine built, which will be next week. Right, you might remember the Rover V8 project for the Imp. We're going to put it in the Husky on the gearbox, and a bit of an update on it. I've decided to scrap doing all that because that's a 4.6 cross-bolted block, as I discussed, and several members of the YouTube community made comments to say, wouldn't you be better off with a 3.5? And I thought, you know what, they've got a good point. The 3.5 is considerably lighter because the mains caps aren't shrouded, so the mains caps just live like this inside here, and they've got space either side of them, so there's less steel in there. And obviously there's a few other bits. It's a smaller main journal crankshaft, so it's a bit larger in that department. So I've got an old 3.5 here, but it wants boring. Now, before I got flat out on the Hillmans, I used to be quite involved with the Rovers for the hot stocks gang and the stock cars and that. So I had a bit of a jig, and I've left the jig outside for years. But this jig allows me to put it on the borer and move the angle, but it'll all become self-explanatory soon. So when I clamp this up, it clamps on the mains here, and then I can swing it to get the block level, and then we can bore it out and make it into what we want to make it. So that's the plan, and then we'll have a nice light. It's only going to be a saving of about 10 kilograms, but be a saving, and also there's the 3.5 will never produce the torque that the 4.6 could, so it's just going to give the gearbox that little bit more of a chance of survival. Right, I've not really got into work this week and started work. I've been sort of messing is the best way of describing it, and I just wanted to get things to a certain stage before I got stuck in. Now obviously I'm keen to get the pistons done for the 1120, but I thought also while I was messing about and I'm in this room, I can do two jobs at once. I can get the Van Norman borer. That's what this is. It's called a mobile boring machine, and this is the jig I just talked about, the rusty one. So I've got that holding the block nice and steady, and this mobile boring machine, it looks quite complicated, but it is a really simple tool and a fantastic tool. So this bar effectively goes down, and it has a tip on the end of the tool here that turns round and bores the cylinder. For the novice this is, by the way. I'm sure lots of you guys have used loads of these. So we turn the handle, we can see it goes down like that. It's loose at the moment. I've not clamped it on because I wanted to show you how the feet worked. So if you look, can you see this little foot here sticking out? Can you see how it's going in and out? Well, there's 4 of those, and what they do is they center on the cylinder. So what I'll do is I'll just plop I've done number 1 cylinder, as you can see. I'll just bring him down a little bit. So bring the feet down so they're well into the bore. You can see the other ones there. And then what we do is we turn this handle here, and that expands the 4 feet so that they center the boring bar in the center of the original bar. So make that good and tight, and you'll see the boring bar is now rigid on the top of the block. And then what we do is we go around here, and it's got a clamp, and the way this clamp works is what happens is this goes inside the pot and comes up that little shoe, and then this device here is called the clamp, and this basically goes inside here. If you look, you'll see it's got a T-slot there where that piece goes into. So that goes inside here like that. And all we do is we tighten this up, and effectively it pulls on this, and it locks itself on top of the block, which allows us to bore the cylinder next to it. Now originally these machines were used, you know, like back in the 60s and 70s when everything was worn out every 40,000 miles. They used to, like, say if you had a Morris Marina or something, the B series, and it was smoking and worn out, what they'd do is they'd take the head off, take the sump off, leave the crankshaft in, and this boring bar has got like a hoover attachment. Oh no, it hasn't. This is it's my other one that's got the hoover, but they used to have a hoover that went on the top, and then what would happen is it hoovered the swarf so nothing went in the engine. Really clever. So they'd bore it and hone it and put new pistons in it, and you didn't have to take the engine out of the car. Just a fast way of rebuilding an engine, really, but I wouldn't recommend it because you must get debris and, you know, carb under them and stuff from when you hone it, and it just sounds horrible. Anyway, you can see the finish it leaves. Now, this 3.5 that I'm going to put in the Husky, obviously it'll have less torque being a smaller capacity engine, but I still don't want it to be a slouch. So I looked in my stock car box and I found a set of old Omegas. Now these are a cast Omega piston, but they've got the valve cutouts. I have got a cam for this engine as well, so we'll run it with a cam as well, you know, a high lift cam. The pistons aren't new, they're very second hand, but I've bored it. Now unlike the Imps where I bore them literally size on size because I've only got, you know, 3,000 to come out, because this is a big pot piston like this, I've run these in the past, and I've run that at +2. That's got +2 thou clearance on the actual standard piston size, and I've done that because I run these with like 6 thou clearance, because being such a long piston, they're still quite stable in the bore, but it just reduces the friction and it helps them to rev. And these 3.5s have got like 70mm a stroke. They are a lovely rever, absolutely lovely. I mean, people on YouTube will be like, yeah, you're full of it, but honestly, I used to run mine on the dyno. I ran it to 8.250 or something, absolutely no problem, on standard rods as well, and crank. You've got to do a lot of modifications to the oil system to make it work, and we will be doing all that, but I'm not sure how much we'll be going into it. But yeah, they're a cracking engine, these Rover V8s, and like a lot of engines, like the Imps almost, you know, because the head is so bad at flowing air, they actually work out as a more powerful engine, RPM wise, as a 3.5 than if you make them massive and make them like a 4.6. All you do is give them more torque. It's really hard to get the horsepower up because the head just won't flow very well. You know, it's a bit puny, a bit asthmatic, we'll say. Anyway, what I'll do is I'm going to clamp this all up, and then we'll bore this together and see what happens. Right, we have been here before, but I'll just do a quick recap in case you're a new viewer. This is the setting tool for the Van Norman borer, and this is the tool with the carbide tip, which is just brazed in the end there. So what happens is, by adjusting the length from this end of this peg here to the tip of the tool, we effectively change the size of the hole that the machine bores. And this device is here to help us measure the length of the tool. So I'm looking for a size for 89.5, or it's 89.4 I think I'm going to, and it's something like that. Anyway, I've set the tool, and it's basically set at I've forgotten now, it's 2.4 oh my gosh, oh yeah, that was it, it was 2.515 initially, right? So we're making it 2.523, so it's 2 inches 523 thou, and I just keep on offering that up. I'll just zoom in so you can see a bit better. You'll see it's just stopping on the 3 line there. 5, 4, 3, perfect. So it's just pinching it. That's like a clamp on a thread. See it moving backwards and forwards. So we set the tool now. So what we do is dead easy. I've just done the rough cut on this, and now we're going to do the finish cut, which is 10 thou. So push that in, make sure it's pushed in good hard and back to its stop, and then we bring it down to there, to the start of the tool tip, just above where it's going to start cutting, and we turn the machine on, and the machine's got a traverse. So what that means is when I slide this over, the machine is going round, but it's also traversing down so we get a nice smooth finish in the bore. So what I'll do is I'll start the machine up, put it into the traverse gear so it's going down, and then when the pegs get level with the top of the block, these are like, not only are they good for centering the block, they also steady the bar, because you imagine the bar's going to be stuck out 5-6 inches down the bore. We want as much support for the tool as possible so we don't get any vibration in the cut. So as soon as it comes level, I'll use this tool here, this handle here, I wind this, and that does, can you see them coming out? That makes the feet come out. It's quite low geared so you can't really see it, but that makes the feet come out. Right, so let's fire him up. Let's turn the switch on here. That's him going round. I'm going to put him in gear. That's him in gear. And hopefully we'll get a nice uniform cut. And then just as, obviously while the boring bar is only stuck out an inch, there's no chance of any vibration, so I'm not concerned. But after that, the feet are nice if they're out touching the block. Keep it all nice and straight. So we're just approaching now, make sure they're fully wound in. You'll hear the tone change when the feet touch the block, so they're just touching now. Can you hear it? Very, very slight change. But that just means that the boring bar is now supported by the feet, and we'll let him run his course all the way to the bottom, and then we'll have a measure together. Right, okay, this is the block that we've just bored together. I've just moved the machine out of the way so you can see the finish. It's not a coarse finish, but it's got to be honed yet before it can be finished size. So this is the piston that we're going to use. It is a second-hand piston, and it goes in there quite easily because that hole there has already got 2 thou clearance on that piston skirt. Now that sounds a bit big, but I am intending to run 6 thou piston to skirt clearance, so I've got 4 thou left to hone out basically. If we put my little bore mic down it, just check the size. This is set to 89.4, which would give us 4 thou clearance, and it's saying that basically I've got 2 thou already, so when I've added my 4 I'll have 6. So that's that. So I'm going to get this honed, do the last 2 cylinders, get it honed, and then we'll get a dry build on and try and get at least part of the way before the end of the week, when I'm going to have to knuckle down and do some custom work. I thought I'd do a bit of a conclusion on the Rover V8 for the Hillman Husky V8 conversion. I've machined the back of the block here so that the flywheel can go on back to front, because obviously we wanted the overall length to be as short as possible, so I moved everything as close as I could. The crank is in, it's had a polish, all that mic'd up okay. And I've bored it and honed it. I don't know if you can actually see in this light or not. You can't really see, but anyway, it's been bored and honed to plus 20 thou, which is 90.5, is it 89.5? So these are my second-hand Omega pistons I'm going to put in it. These are flat tops, so and they've got valve cutouts as well, so that means we can run my wild cam in this engine. So it'll do some RPM, which will be ideal for the Hillman Husky gearbox, because the gearbox obviously very low ratio, so we'll need to use like 6,000 and 7,000 RPM to get a good top speed out of it. Now I just thought I'd show you this. This is the pin out of the Omega piston, and if I zoom in, can you see the wear on it there? That line in the middle is, if we look inside the piston, you'll see there's an oil hole, and then there's a groove, and the pin is absolutely worn out, and the piston's okay, believe it or not. And I just sort of share with you what that is these have had a life in a stock car, and when a stock car or anything, grass track or anything, runs on shale, the muck gets in the oil, and it just turns it to like effectively like a grinding paste, and it just wears the engines out like you can't believe. So yeah, if ever you race on shale, you need to dump the oil straight after the race meeting. You can do 5 tarmac meetings in a run with modern oil, no problem, but as soon as the car goes near shale, you need to drop that oil, because all that happens is, you've been on the cars in, is it on YouTube?
The Car's the Star, yes, yeah. It is on YouTube, and it was probably done about
Okay, YouTubers, we've got a special visitor for me today in the workshop, and this is his engine. This is Nigel, Mr. Nigel Stringer.
Morning, everybody.
Nigel's come over with his Paulie Hillman engine. It's well, I'll let you give us some history, Nigel. But before I say anything else, you're used to the camera, aren't you? Because you've been on the cars in. Is it on YouTube?
The Car's the Star. Yes,
Yeah.
It is on YouTube, and it was probably done about 25 years ago now.
Really?
And I drove the 63, and
Yeah, it's
a
lovely.
lot of people know the number 669 KOF.
Yeah, I remember the car. Lovely.
But what I found out about that Car's the Star, it was the script's already written out, and certain parts of it you can see how the conversation's going.
Right.
And there's not a lot you can
Yeah.
really do to change the script. But overall it wasn't bad, but obviously there was a bit of negativity on it about the image,
they love doing
which
that.
I don't like.
No, I don't either. And I boycotted Top Gear my entire lifetime.
Yeah.
Do you remember that fat bloke, Tony Mason?
Oh God. It
Do
was,
you remember what he did to the Hillman where he
was
sat in the
shocking.
truck?
yeah,
Well, what a plonker.
I know I paid for various parts, but I've just got a few issues with it. There's a little bit of smoke on the overrun sometimes,
Okay.
and it does lose some water as well.
Right.
And I think the Webbers have gone off as well.
Yeah. Well,
So-
if the engine's not fit, the cars don't have a chance. So
Yeah.
we'll start pulling it apart and we'll see what we
Yeah.
see, and we'll stop at various points
Yeah.
and discuss what we've seen. But it looks like a lovely job.
Yeah, it's
The
got
head looks nice, and
Yeah, R21 cam, big valve head. It's balanced. It's usual Wills rings. It's
excellent. Excellent. And it's got a lovely polished cam cover. Look at that.
oh yes, everybody needs a polished cam.
Oh, it's a work of art. That I'll get you when I get me Shrigley ones engraved. I'll get you one to polish
Yeah,
with the Shrigley on
I
it.
could do with that.
It's going to happen this year, I promise.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely fit it.
Brilliant. Okay, just on me taking Nigel's engine apart, and well, it looks pretty good, doesn't it, Nigel? To be fair,
Yes, it does.
I can't see any major issues. The wheel strings look to be squashed quite uniformly. There is some oil in there, so we'll have a look at the guides and decide if they're worn or not. Also, we'll have a look at the piston rings. I can't really see a hone. How many miles do you think this has done?
It's done about 5,000.
Yeah, it's not a lot, is it? No. There's very little traces of. I like to see the hone under the glaze, so I'm not sure what's going on yet. We'll take the pistons out and have a look at those, and also we'll take the valves out and have a look at the guides, and we'll remove the wheel strings as well and have a look at the groove, make sure there's no issues there. But it's very difficult to see whether they've been blowing or not because of the way that it all sort of like goes rusty and horrible with the the iron liner. But yeah, the liner, we've checked the liners for protrusion and they're all level with the block, so there's not an issue there. So I have to keep looking.
Yes, it was made in Sheffield by Ambrose Shardlows. That's why you get the name of Ambrosia.
Cast on the side.
Cast on the side.
See if we can show that, because I've noticed that on a few cranks. Oh yeah, Ambrosia there.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can zoom in on that. So that was Ambrosia Shardlow.
No, Ambrose. They used to call the company Ambrose Shardlow when I first started work, and that's where the Ambrosia comes from. And then they got taken over or bought out by GKN.
Yeah, because we're just saying the later 930 engines have got GKN stamped on the crankshaft.
That'll be right. Yeah.
Wow. There you go. You learn something every day. So what we're going to do is make a plan for Nigel on how to sort this out, and I'm basically saying to him, we're going to have a look at different costs together, but basically pull the liners out, re-glue them in, and then we'll bore it to 73mm from 72.5. That'll make it a 1012cc, and then we can make sure the bore is perfectly round and fresh. I didn't want to just put pistons in on this bore because it's on a few miles, and it could be all shapes from it. I've not even put a bore mic down it, but I assume it'll be all shapes. So Another thing I just noticed, Nigel, is it's an original GT block, isn't it? Look.
GT?
Yeah, it says GT on the back.
What's that stand for?
On all the Imp Sport blocks. Is it out of an Imp Sport, this?
Yeah, it is.
Imp Sport,
Yeah.
original number to the car, is it?
Not to this car, no.
Right. Yeah, it's an Imp Sport block.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, so what we've found is these are the pistons and they look in great condition, but it's got what I call a Deeves oil control ring on it. And we've come to put it in the bore, and the gap is enormous on it. So we're not quite sure whether it's worn that way or whether it was originally that way, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to put it on a set of the modern pistons with the metric ring pack, which will definitely sort his oil consumption out. The head, which is down here, is going to have a bit of a skim and some wheel string grooves remachined on it. Not that there's a lot wrong with it, it's all pretty good, and the guides are good on it. There's no issue there, so it's just purely an oil consumption from the bottom end. And we're going to put some bearings in it as well, aren't we?
We are, yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Right, we'll crack on, and Nigel, I'll expect to see you on Sunday night eating your popcorn.
Oh, I can't wait. I think
You're going to be there, are you?
Yeah, you've got a lot of followers. And
in the Hillman world.
we all look forward to it.
Yeah,
and we learn a lot as well.
Oh,
it teaches us a lot.
Oh,
so.
good. Well, I'm glad. I should have picked minis because there's millions of mini people. I would have had loads of subscribers then. Right, brilliant. Thanks, Nigel, for taking
You're
part
welcome.
anyway. Okay, YouTubers, I'm having a little celebration after my shocking production all week, or lack of, should I say. Now, if you watched last week's episode 25, in part 3 at the very end, we talked about the Ian Carter job most of the videos and the interview with Pat, and then at the very end, I brought on this mini or imp engine designed to run on a mini gearbox that had the accident with the big end knocked out, and it had the bad thrust on it because the thrust washer had been put in back to front by some previous engine builder, not Ian Carter. Anyway, when we turned it over, it was out by 20 thou, the crank, so it had a 20 thou bend, and if you look at it, you'll see there's some heat in it there where the thrusters caused it to get hot when it's rubbed due to lack of lubrication, because the thrust washers have got like pads on them and an oil gallery, and if you put them in back to front, it ends up being like a hard steel against steel, so it doesn't have a chance. Anyway, the reason I'm celebrating is when we turned it over, if you remember, it was 20 thou or 22 thou out of plonk, so we're gonna have to get this ground to make it round again because it's oval and obviously it's all coarse, and we were going to get the mains ground as well, but because it was 20 thou out, we was going to have to probably end up on 40s to get it all straight, and then we'd end up with a situation where the mains would be all straight because they've been ground, but this can't be ground because it's finished size, so as you turn it over, the two ends of the crank would be out, and I've been here before, it causes all sorts of problems. So what I thought I'd do was I spent a bit of time on the press, I've got it warm on the heater, and I've just been going round, and my celebration is I've got it to within 2 thou, which I thought was a pretty good result. So now when we take it to the balancers, you can tidy up that big end. I've not decided yet whether we're going to grind them all or just that one. These are all absolutely bob on, these three. I'll speak to the customer. My thoughts would just be to turn that one journal down, but then it might make it hard to balance up, so yeah, I'll probably end up doing them all. But we'll be able to get the mains to clean up now on 10 thou with the thrust as well. We'll get that cleaned up at the same time, so yeah, I'm dead happy with that. I've got the Rover V8, the 3.5, it's honed, it's cleaned, it's deburred, it's just having a steam clean, and we'll do a little talk on that, and hopefully I'll get the pistons finished as well for the 1120 today. Basic 875 imp, I think it's plus 1 mil or something, but yeah, absolutely lovely casting. I mean, this is superb. I suppose in one area it would have been easier to get this sort of stuff made because there was more foundries, etc. And then this is the head, and it's like it's using a CVH flat tooth belt pattern to drive this idler. There's a gear and an idler, and I think he said the oil pump's in the front as well. And I was like, wow, you've grafted all this onto a Hillman Imp cylinder head. And he said, yeah. He said, I had to do that because the engine runs backwards in the motorbike, otherwise the gearbox is all wrong. So to run the engine backwards, I had to run the camshaft backwards. I was like, you've lost me already. This guy's blowing my mind. So yeah, that's absolutely stunning. Real impressive engineering. And then here, I particularly like this. It's like cute. I recognise that as being a CVH water pump bolt pattern, which is something he devised to run the water pump on the front there. And obviously, same again, he's got the bottom end cast, split it at the centre line, cast it, and then bolted that on. That bolts onto the Norton gearbox and hangs in the frame. And then he's used a Hillman Imp crankshaft. And what he's done is, would have been the other half of the crankshaft, obviously. He's machined it off and put a peg drive on it with a little Woodruff key there. Unfortunately, it has knocked a journal out. It was racing apparently, and it had a whoopsie. But what we'll do is we'll take this for grinding, and we'll tidy all this up, and then we'll take it for balancing as well, and see if we can help him out to get it balanced, and hopefully it'll be all right then. And then the head. Now this is absolutely awesome. I mean, look at that. It's gear driven off. Oh, it's just beautiful. Not sure why it's gear driven both ends. What's the point of that? Maybe it was driven up. No, it will have been driven up this end, won't it, off the belt? Maybe it was this one he told me ran the oil pump or something. It's just amazing. He must have thought about this so much. He's obviously a very, very clever chap, but it's just beautifully made. And he's keen. He's at sort of retirement-ish stage now, and he's keen to get all this back together. So I'm going to help him out as much as I can in getting the grinding done, etc. And we'll clean it all, and then we'll let him put it all back together. But just have a look at some of this here. This is the folder. He said it was okay to make a video on it. I did ask his permission, but look at that. I think he said it took him 3 weeks. I don't think he slept much, but what an absolutely awesome bit of kit. So that was the 2-cylinder one. That's a 2-cylinder one in the bike. That's obviously the 4-cylinder one with the cam belt drive up the front, and I can recognise the CVH water pump there. And then look at that, even with an old E30 Beamer in the background. Stunning. Look at the belt covers he made for it, and the air-cooled sump. Brilliant. So that's some more pictures of it there. Look, it looks like it's meant to be, doesn't it? Another one there. And the cooler in front of it. I bet some people on here might recognise some of these faces. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's a shame about the reflections. Hopefully you can see all this okay. Motorcycling News, July the 7th, 1982. Wow. Oh, I'll just try and move away from this this light. That's better, isn't it? Another picture there. Some more. Imp Power. Yeah, this is absolutely mega. This is some of his achievements that he did with it. Some stuff on the Imp there. There's the block, obviously. Inside the block. That's the bit that he had cast. Wow. Mega. Right. Well, we'll call it a wrap at that for this week. So, hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. Look at that. How did he dream that up? Oh, and there's the Norton gearbox on the end. Looks like it's meant to be, doesn't it? Chain driven. Internally. Oh, I think this was the oil pump he was telling me about. So the oil pump ran off the end of the head. Wow. Brilliant. Some more pictures there. I hope other people find this fascinating, not just me. Don't know if that's the actual bike. That might be the 2-cylinder one that went racing. Wow. I love pictures from the 80s. Just something about them that's very special. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That's an original one, isn't it, with the big thumper in it. Yep. Right, grand. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I look forward to seeing you all next Sunday.